I sat still, my hands folded, as my son leaned back in his chair and laughed, loud, sharp, certain. "The company's mine. Let's not waste time," he said, grinning like the will was a formality and legacy was his birthright. But then the lawyer turned the page and spoke my daughter's name. The silence that followed didn't just cut the room, it cut through everything I'd ignored for years. The son I raised had already buried the father who built it all, and now I had to choose bloodline or truth. We're about to begin, but if you'd like, share where you're joining from. It reminds me this story doesn't echo into silence, it lands somewhere real. Drop it in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. The room snaps to quiet like a pulled cord. Mahogany walls press in, glossy and cold, the kind that hold on to secrets. The ticking grandfather clock in the corner dares anyone to breathe too loudly. Franklin adjusts his glasses and clears his throat. A minor gesture, but in this room, it detonates like a warning shot. "Some clauses may be contentious," he says, voice smooth but alert. Every chair shifts, ankles uncross, backs straighten, spines brace like they're about to take a hit. I don't move. Across the table, Daniel smirks like this is theater and we're backstage crew. He taps his pen in triplets. A quiet percussion only I can decode. Victory rhythms. It's not the first time he's played this beat, and last time, it cost me everything but my silence. Marissa, my daughter, sits 2 seats down, angled just enough to keep me in her periphery. Her eyes stay pinned on the documents, but her posture is military still. Her right thumb presses hard against her wedding band, a nervous tick she thinks I haven't noticed. She won't let herself hope. Not here. Not after the last will reading turned into a character assassination. Franklin turns a page, careful and deliberate. "Henry's language is very specific," he continues. "There are tests of leadership." His exact phrase was "fitness to lead." That does it. My throat tightens. There it is. Fitness to lead. The phrase he underlined twice in the draft he never meant for me to see. Daniel's chair whispers forward as he leans in close to my ear. "Relax, Mom. This is a formality," he says, voice low and bright with condescension. Like he's offering me tea before a firing squad. I inhale slowly. Count to 4. Exhale to 6. My therapist would be proud. The room still feels rigged. Like any sudden movement might spark the fuse no one wants to admit is already lit. Distant relatives line the back wall like bored jurors. They don't speak. They just trade slow, intentional glances, mouths twitching in anticipation. Spectators at a public execution they paid to see. Every one of them is waiting for the clause that turns the tables, or buries me. Franklin slides a sealed envelope forward, the wax intact, heavy with symbolism. "Henry's final amendments were submitted 2 days before his death," he says. "This envelope contains the qualifying provision." Daniel's smirk fades a degree. Marissa leans forward, just slightly. The air compresses. Franklin breaks the seal. "This was handwritten, notarized by 2 independent witnesses." I want to close my eyes, but I don't. If there's blood in the water, I need to see who swims first. He unfolds the single sheet, eyes scanning top to bottom, lips moving just enough to unnerve me. Then he reads aloud. "To inherit controlling interest in the Monroe Foundation, the named successor must demonstrate 3 core traits I consider vital: integrity, discretion, and judgment under pressure. A scenario has been arranged, already set in motion. This clause supersedes all others." The words hit like a shifting floor. Everyone looks around, trying to see who knew what and when. Daniel straightens, confusion briefly breaking through the surface. "What scenario?" Marissa asks, her voice barely above a whisper. Franklin taps the page once. He doesn't say. Only that it began yesterday. A sharp knock interrupts. The door opens. Not the main one, but the side one that leads directly to Henry's old study. A young woman steps in, late 20s, crisp navy suit, clipboard in hand. "I'm sorry to intrude," she says, scanning the room with the ease of someone who knows she belongs. "But I've been instructed to begin the evaluation process now." Franklin nods. "Of course. You're with the firm?" She smiles, but it doesn't reach her eyes. "Not exactly. I'm with the other executor." Daniel blinks. "There's another executor?" The woman steps forward, placing a manila folder directly in front of me. "Mrs. Monroe," she says, addressing me directly for the first time. "We need to start with your segment first. Privately." The room holds its breath. Daniel shoots upright. "Wait. Why her? What the hell is this?" I don't answer. My hands are already on the folder. It's warm, as if someone just let go of it. I open the cover and freeze. Inside is a photo of me, time-stamped yesterday. I'm standing outside a building I haven't visited in 15 years, a place no one was supposed to know I ever stepped foot in. My stomach drops, because suddenly I understand. The test already started. The door to the study closes behind me with a soft click, but the echo it leaves behind drags like a scream. Franklin resumes his seat as if nothing cracked the timeline. His expression is unreadable, but his hands move with lawyerly grace, slow, deliberate, giving gravity to each motion. He flips to a new section in the binder. The will's next chapter. The part everyone expects to hear, but no one's really here for. "To begin," Franklin says, "Henry Monroe left specific items and properties to extended family members and lifelong acquaintances." The room adjusts again. Small coughs, postures reset. Everyone wants to act like they aren't holding their breath. But they are. You can feel it in the way silence competes with the hum of the air conditioner, mechanical and faintly mocking. First up, a beach house in Hilton Head, bequeathed to a second cousin whose biggest accomplishment is marrying well. She gasps, then quickly dials it back into something rehearsed. "Henry always loved the coast," she says, like a line from an audition tape. Franklin moves on. A painting from Henry's private study, gifted to a nephew who's never held a job but dabbles in creative ventures. The man nods solemnly, probably Googling the artist's resale value in his mind. Then another cousin gets a timeshare in Sedona and a modest stock account. "That's very generous," she murmurs. She sounds like she's thanking a donor at a charity gala. They're all actors, and not even good ones. Clapping with their eyes, hoping for second scenes. Daniel, seated like a prince mid-coronation, breaks the farce with a dry chuckle. "Let's skip the trinkets," he says, leaning back. "We all know where this is going." Heads swivel toward him. One of the uncles frowns. A cousin in pearls raises her brows but stays silent. Franklin doesn't look up. He simply says, "We'll proceed in order." Marissa gets the next mention. "A Patek Philippe watch," Franklin reads, "and a leather-bound ledger set Henry used from 1985 to 2001. He lifts the box carefully and passes it to her. Marissa accepts it with both hands. No flourish, no comment, just one sharp nod. Her face is unreadable, but I catch the shift in her jawline. Tight, then smooth. That watch belonged to Henry's father. The ledgers are worse. One of them contains the first year Henry put her name in ink beside mine, charting a legacy he never explained but always hinted at. The tension in the room starts to calcify. Franklin lets it. He's pacing the reading like a seasoned conductor, slowing the tempo, letting each note land and resonate before pulling the next one from the score. Daniel stretches theatrically, cracking his knuckles like he's about to pitch a no-hitter. Every inch of him screams smug entitlement, like the delay is just a warm-up act for his name in lights. I don't look at him. Instead, I study Franklin. He flips the page with reverence. This one's heavier, glossier stalk, the kind reserved for what matters most. He lifts his gaze. In regard to Monroe Holdings and its business assets, he begins, that section has been addressed separately. Something shifts in the air. Not just discomfort, disorientation, a fracture in the rhythm. Daniel sits up. What does that mean? Addressed how? Franklin turns a single page. Instructions regarding the company are sealed. They will be distributed upon completion of the successor evaluation. The what? Daniel blinks. Marissa slowly closes the lid of her box. Her watch ticks once, twice. Franklin's voice is steady. As Henry stated, integrity, discretion, and judgment under pressure. These are not inherited. They're tested. Someone coughs. The air conditioner kicks back on with a low, droning hum that feels suddenly accusatory. Daniel's voice slices through it. He gave it to her, didn't he? His chair screeches back. This whole circus is just to make it look fair. Franklin doesn't flinch. No one has been granted control. Yet. Daniel glares at me like he's sizing up a rival he underestimated too late. But I'm not looking at him anymore, because Franklin has just turned another page, this one bearing a name I haven't heard in 17 years, and it's not mine. Franklin lets the page breathe in his hand before speaking, as though the ink itself has weight. Dalton and Capers, he says at last. The syllables land like a dropped anchor. Every gaze drags toward him, as if pulled by the same chain. Daniel reacts first. His posture hardens, his smirk gone. He sits forward, jaw locked tight, the sharp lines of his face catching the chandelier's glare. His eyes burn with a single expectation that this is the prelude to his coronation. Franklin, ever measured, reads without hurry. Dalton and Couture remains the Foundation's most critical enterprise. Stewardship requires 4 cornerstones: cash controls, safety compliance, vendor trust, and payroll stability. Fail in any, and the rest will collapse. The room stiffens. Even the air seems to hesitate, clinging close, too heavy for lungs. Marissa's fingers lace together tightly on the table, knuckles pale. Her eyes don't move, don't blink. She absorbs every word as though her future depends on not missing a single one. Daniel can't stand the silence swallowing him whole. We all know where this is going, he says, louder than the moment warrants. There's no need to drag it out. Franklin doesn't look at him. He simply lifts one hand, palm outward, dismissing the interruption like smoke. His voice remains calm, precise. In Henry's words, leadership is not birthright. The phrase lands heavy, syllables striking like stones against glass. The cousins along the wall exchange quick glances. Some look relieved, others troubled, but all of them watch Daniel. His neck flushes red. Franklin continues. Leadership must be demonstrated through consistent action, not inherited position or entitlement. Daniel exhales a bitter laugh, trying to wrestle control back with derision. Entitlement? Please. Everyone here knows Henry was grooming me to run this long before. Sit down, Daniel. Franklin's voice cuts through like the snap of a gavel. Calm, but final. Daniel hesitates, then leans back, fury smoldering under his skin. His pen, the same one he'd been tapping earlier in rhythms of triumph, now lies motionless against the table, abandoned. I lower my gaze to the polished walnut surface where the light above throws distorted reflections. My hands are there, pale and foreign, like someone else's. I don't recognize them. They tremble faintly against the gleam, the skin stretched thin over veins that pulse with dread. Franklin clears his throat. Henry was explicit. Dalton and Co. shall be guided not by assumption of privilege, but by the individual who best embodies the traits necessary for its survival. The word survival carries weight. He lets it hang. Marissa's head tilts almost imperceptibly, as if she's hearing more in those words than the rest of us. Daniel mutters under his breath, but it's audible enough. This is a joke. Franklin ignores him and turns the page once more. To determine rightful stewardship, 3 evaluations have been arranged. The first began yesterday. Each candidate will be measured against Henry's standards. There will be no appeals. My stomach tightens. Yesterday. The folder. The photo. The place I should never have been seen near. Franklin looks down, then directly at me. His eyes hold me for a fraction too long before he speaks again. Henry's intention, he says slowly, was not to divide his family, but to reveal it. The relatives behind us stir, restless, unsure whether to be fascinated or terrified. The air conditioner kicks again, the low drone suddenly oppressive, filling every corner with its reminder that this room is sealed, inescapable. Daniel's voice slices the noise. Reveal what exactly? His tone is edged with mockery, but beneath it thrums a current of real fear. Franklin doesn't answer him immediately. Instead, he closes the binder, hands resting atop it, heavy and deliberate. Then, that one among you is already failing. The words detonate. A gasp escapes from the wall of relatives. Marissa's interlaced fingers jerk apart. Daniel bolts upright, furious. And me. My pulse spikes because I know. He's talking about me. Franklin doesn't speak right away. He lets silence do the cutting, his gaze moving from face to face, cataloging each of us as though arranging evidence on a board. It isn't random. It's surgical. He wants us to feel the weight of what he just said, that one of us is already failing. Daniel can't stand the pressure. His laugh bursts out sharp and misplaced, bouncing off the paneled walls. Dad loved a show, he says, shaking his head like this whole production is an elaborate magic trick he alone understands. No one laughs with him. A distant uncle, one of the ones who always stayed half in shadow at family gatherings, mutters low but clear enough to cut through. Careful, kid. The room bristles. Chairs shift. Even the air seems to change direction. Daniel freezes for half a second, caught between snapping back and pretending he didn't hear. His jaw ticks, but he swallows it down, settling into a smug grin that doesn't quite fit his face. Marissa hasn't moved. Her spine is a line drawn in ink, her hands folded so still they could be carved from stone. Only the pulse at her neck betrays her. Quick, steady, undeniable. She knows Franklin's words matter more than Daniel's noise. And she refuses to give the room her tells. Franklin opens the binder again, careful as a surgeon resuming an incision. His voice is steady, deliberate, meant to carry without shouting. The company belongs, he says, to the child who demonstrated discipline under pressure. The phrase drops like lead. Discipline. Under pressure. Daniel exhales, his lips curling into a private smile. He leans back, whispering, "That's me," like a prayer he doesn't think needs an altar. But the sound lands like arrogance, not devotion. My stomach twists. Henry's definition of discipline was never soft, never gentle. It wasn't about calm speeches or polished exteriors. It was about survival, about walking into fire, and not flinching even when your skin blistered. It was about standing when everyone else sat, about silence, when silence cost you more than screaming. Daniel has never understood that. He thought discipline meant waiting long enough for applause. Franklin lifts a slip of paper from the binder, glancing down before continuing. Henry wrote that each of you has been tested, though you may not have recognized it as such. The cousins at the wall stir. One of them whispers, "Tested?" And the word ricochets through the room. Franklin raises his hand again. Stillness returns. He believed character reveals itself not in what we prepare for, but in what blindsides us. Each of you has already shown him what he needed to see. Daniel leans forward, hungry. Then say it. Stop dangling it. Who passed? Franklin doesn't answer him directly. Instead, he turns another page, eyes scanning until he finds the exact line. His lips shape the words first, then he lets them fall aloud. The child who learned to hold silence when silence was impossible. The one who did not break, even when breaking was expected. My breath stutters, because I know that moment. I know the day Henry meant, and I remember exactly what it cost me. Daniel's grin falters, then stiffens. He forces a laugh, thin and cracked. Sounds poetic, but it's obvious. He's talking about me. Franklin closes the binder halfway. You're welcome to believe that. Daniel slams his palm against the table, rattling the glasses of water lined neatly in front of us. Enough riddles. If this is about me, then say it. Crown me already. The cousins shrink back, uneasy. Even the uncles avert their eyes. Marissa tilts her chin, finally breaking her stillness. Her voice, quiet but edged with steel, slices through the chaos. Or maybe, Daniel, it's about the one you never saw coming. The room goes silent again. Franklin folds the binder shut with a sound like a gavel. His eyes find mine. He doesn't look away. And I realize, with a chill that sinks bone deep, that Henry's definition of discipline may yet destroy me, because he was watching on the very day I thought I'd hidden everything. Franklin doesn't reopen the binder right away. He rests his palm against it, as if steadying the weight of what comes next. His eyes sweep the table once more, lingering on Daniel, then Marissa, then me. The silence draws long enough for the tick of the grandfather clock to intrude, each beat daring someone to speak first. Finally, Franklin lifts the cover. He reads in a voice firm enough to still the air. Dalton and Co. is left to Marissa Dalton. The words don't just land, they ripple. A current passes through the room, a collective intake of breath. For a fraction of a second, no one moves. Then the sound comes. Gasps, mutters, the scrape of shoes shifting against the rug. Daniel's face splits, first into confusion, then disbelief, then fury so sharp it looks carved. His smile fractures like brittle glass. That's a mistake, he snaps, his voice cracking against the hush. His knuckles blanch as he grips the edge of the table hard enough to make it tremble. But Franklin doesn't falter. He adjusts his glasses, his tone unwavering. Henry's judgment was clear. He measured readiness not in promises or appearances, but in results. Daniel jerks forward, veins corded at his neck. Results? She's done nothing. I carried him through strategy meetings. I negotiated deals he never would have closed. No, Franklin interrupts, calm but impenetrable. You shadowed him. Marissa delivered. The words slice Daniel down to size, stripping the bravado from his frame. For once, he has no rehearsed retort. Marissa doesn't gloat. She doesn't even smile. She draws in one deep breath, exhales, and gives a single nod, measured, precise. Her pulse still flickers faintly at her neck, but her composure is ironclad. The gravity of the room shifts toward her, undeniable. It's like the entire table tilts in her direction, cousins and uncles recalibrating themselves as though pulled by a new axis. Even the relatives against the wall can't help leaning subtly forward, their eyes fastening on her. I feel it too. The tug, the pivot. My daughter, suddenly the center of a storm Henry orchestrated years in advance. My chest constricts with something jagged and unnameable. Pride, fear, guilt. Maybe all three tangled so tight they're indistinguishable. Daniel's chair screeches as he shoves it backward. This isn't over, he snarls, his voice shaking with a fury too raw to disguise. He doesn't wait for permission, doesn't bother with dignity. He storms out, the door slamming against the frame so violently the chandelier above us trembles. The silence left behind is thicker than before. Franklin closes the binder with deliberate precision, as though sealing one chapter before opening another. His gaze returns to Marissa, then flicks briefly to me, reading something in my face I can't disguise. Marissa sets the box containing her inheritance, the watch and the ledgers, squarely in front of her. Her fingers rest lightly atop it, anchoring herself in a moment too big for anyone else to claim for her. She doesn't bow under the stares. She doesn't falter. The cousins along the wall whisper among themselves now, their voices low but urgent. A new narrative is already forming, alliances rewriting themselves in real time. One uncle clears his throat as though to speak, but Franklin lifts a hand, silencing him before words can escape. "This," Franklin says, voice heavy with authority, "is not the conclusion. Dalton and Cohen has an owner. But the foundation itself, and its legacy, remain contested." His words hang like smoke, refusing to clear. I look at Marissa, who stares back with eyes too calm, too still, and for the first time I see Henry in her. Not in her features, but in her resolve. The clock ticks once, twice, and then Franklin turns another page. The name at the top of it makes my blood run cold. The courthouse doors groan as they swing open, releasing us into the punishing heat of late afternoon. Outside, the parking lot radiates like a stovetop. Asphalt breathes waves that distort the parked cars into a mirage of bending steel. Daniel's voice cuts across the shimmer before I even see him. He's pacing near the hood of his car, phone to his ear, jaw clenched so hard I can see the tendon straining from 20 feet away. "No, I don't care what he said. Get me a judge on the record by tonight," he snaps. His voice is jagged, ragged, loud enough for the pigeons on the lamppost to scatter. If Franklin thinks this stands, he's out of his mind. I move toward him, each step heavy, as though the heat itself has weight. "Daniel!" He spins, fury blazing in his eyes. He yanks the phone from his ear, hand shaking with a tremor he tries to disguise as control. "You let him set me up," he spits. The words land like a slap. "That's not... Don't." He cuts me off, jerking his arm away when I reach for him. His skin is hot under my fingertips for the briefest moment before he shakes me off like I burned him. "You sat there and watched him humiliate me. You let Henry write me out." My throat tightens. There's no answer he'll accept. The courthouse door opens again. Marissa steps out. She doesn't hesitate, doesn't slow. Papers clutched tight against her chest. She walks straight through the fracture in us. Through Daniel's rage, my silence, the ruin of everything we thought was inevitable. She doesn't look left or right, doesn't flinch at the heat or the noise. Daniel's eyes track her, hatred raw and unfiltered. "You stole my life," he shouts after her, the words echoing off the cars, too sharp, too loud. Marissa doesn't turn. Her heels click against the asphalt, unbothered, steady. Daniel looks like he might chase her, but the distance between them grows too fast, too final. His arm falls, useless at his side. Franklin appears then, slipping from the courthouse with the same quiet gravity he carried inside. He doesn't walk toward Daniel. He walks toward me, his expression unreadable behind the tinted lenses of his glasses. "He anticipated this," Franklin says softly, voice pitched so only I can hear. "Henry knew Daniel would challenge. He documented everything." The heat presses harder, sweat dampening my collar. "Was there ever a version?" I ask, words breaking on the weight of them. "Where Daniel gets it?" Franklin doesn't answer right away. He simply looks at me, then down at the asphalt shimmering beneath our feet. The silence is answer enough. Daniel slams his phone shut, veins in his temple throbbing. He starts pacing again, faster this time, running a hand through his hair until it stands in wild disarray. His mouth twists as he mutters into the air, rehearsing battles only he can see. Finally, he stops. He dials again, thrusting the phone to his ear. "Yeah, it's me," he says, voice low now but coiled with venom. "We're not done. Draft the paperwork. I want to file to contest immediately. I don't care what it costs. We fight on every front." He shoves the phone into his pocket with a violent motion, his decision sealed. He isn't just angry now. He's dangerous. Marissa's car pulls out across the lot, her figure a silhouette behind the windshield. She doesn't look back. Daniel watches the taillights vanish, his fists balling at his sides. Then he turns to me. His face is a storm. Grief, betrayal, wrath colliding all at once. "You're either with me," he says, voice raw, "or you're against me." The words hang between us, scorching, irreversible. And for the first time, I realize he isn't bluffing. The mansion feels cavernous without Henry's presence. All the gilt frames and polished marble suddenly stripped of their authority. Shadows stretch long against the parquet floors, exaggerated by the dying light outside. I find Daniel in the great room. He's on the leather sofa, hunched, a half-empty bottle of bourbon clutched in his hand. He doesn't bother with glasses anymore. He tilts it back, throat working, then wipes his mouth with the back of his wrist. His eyes are glassy, rimmed red, humiliation clinging to him like sweat. "They think this is over," he mutters, words slurring at the edges. "They think they can humiliate me and walk away clean." He stares at the flames licking inside the fireplace, pupils catching the light like embers. "I'll make them pay." His voice is thick, unmoored, no longer the smooth bravado he wore in the courtroom. It's darker, rawer, a promise stripped of polish. I take a cautious step closer. "Daniel?" He laughs bitterly, cutting me off. "You don't get it, do you? I was ready. I had everything lined up." I frown. "What do you mean?" He leans forward, setting the bottle on the rug with a careless thud. "I placed bets, leveraged positions. Henry dies, I take the company, and we cash out strong." His words tumble, reckless, too fast. "I staked everything. It was supposed to be collateral." The word detonates inside me. Collateral. My pulse spikes, echoing in my ears. Collateral means exposure, danger, ruin if he's wrong. And he is wrong. "You gambled against your own father's death?" My voice breaks before I can steady it. He slams his hand against the arm of the sofa. "Don't you dare make me the villain. Henry promised it to me. Promised. You were there. You heard him." The bourbon fumes hang between us. His eyes are wild, glassy, fevered with betrayal. "I need you," he says, pointing a shaking finger at me, "to testify. You'll tell the court Dad swore it was mine, that he said it 100 times. You'll swear to it." The words crash into me like cold water. He's asking me to perjure myself, to dig his grave deeper, with both of us buried inside. I try to breathe, try to summon something measured, but my throat locks. "I can't," I whisper. His face freezes, then hardens. I watch the door slam shut behind his eyes. Warmth gone, affection gone, only iron and rage left behind. "You can't?" His voice is a low rasp, disbelief curdling into menace. "You won't, you mean?" "Daniel, please." He surges up from the sofa, moving closer, his frame filling the room. He towers, shoulders squared, chest heaving. I can smell the bourbon on his breath, sharp and hot. "You've always been against me," he says, every word dripping with accusation. "You think Marissa's better? That she deserves this? You're pathetic. You let him pit us against each other, and now you're choosing her over me." I shake my head, tears stinging but refusing to fall. "I'm not choosing—" He doesn't let me finish. With a roar, he snatches the tumbler from the mantel and hurls it across the room. It shatters against the fireplace, glass exploding into a spray of shards that glitter like diamonds in the firelight before scattering dead on the marble. The sound echoes through the mansion like a verdict. I stand frozen, chest heaving, watching the boy I raised dissolve into someone I don't recognize. And in that moment, I realize Daniel isn't just unraveling, he's gearing up for war. Dalton and Coatter's lobby hums with purpose. Phones ring, keyboards clatter, and every step on the polished concrete has the clipped cadence of people who know exactly where they're going. At the center of it, Marissa moves like she's been here all her life. She doesn't need to raise her voice. Staff orbit her in brisk, efficient arcs, one sliding a folder into her hands, another waiting for her signature, a third jotting notes as she ticks through decisions without hesitation. Shipping schedules, vendor audits, safety protocols. She slices through them clean. No drama, no wasted motion. Watching her, I feel the air tilt. The same floor that once belonged to Henry, where charisma held the walls together, now steadies under something else. Competence. When the staff disperses, I step forward, clutching the plea that's been growing heavier since last night. Marissa, I begin, softer than I intend. I need you to find a place for your brother. Limited, supervised, anything. Something to keep him steady. Her eyes lift from the papers. For a moment, I think I see her hesitate. But no, it isn't hesitation. It's weighing. The answer lives in her gaze before her mouth forms the words. He'll endanger payroll. The sentence drops between us, flat and undeniable. I inhale, searching for a counter, but she continues before I can. You know what that means, Mom? Not just numbers on a balance sheet, crews, families, people who show up every morning and depend on us to keep their lights on. I won't let them become collateral. The word stings. Collateral. The same word Daniel used. The same danger. Refracted from different mouths. I swallow hard. He's still your brother. Her expression softens, but only slightly. I know, which is why I'll help him personally. But the keys stay with me. She straightens the stack of papers, the motion neat, decisive, closing the subject even as the conversation continues to beat in my chest. In the glass wall behind her, I catch our reflections. Henry's old office around us, but no trace of Henry here. Just Marissa, steady and exacting, her shoulders squared not with bravado but with certainty. Competence stands where charisma once flashed. I nod, though it feels like surrender. Then promise me, I say. Promise me you won't give up on him. Her gaze softens again, but it doesn't waver. I won't. But Mom, some battles, he has to want to win. The words cut because I know she's right. She's already moving on, flipping open another file, sliding into the next decision, staff flowing back around her in a rhythm that feels rehearsed but is entirely hers. She doesn't look flustered, doesn't crave approval, doesn't hesitate. Every gesture is deliberate, earned. I leave the office with the promise of her words in my ears and the weight of dread in my stomach. Promises can't hold Daniel. Promises won't stop the fire he's already set in himself. The lobby doors close behind me with a pressurized sigh. Outside, the city roars, traffic surging, horns blaring, 1,000 engines thrumming in restless unison. And under it all, like a low drumbeat only I can hear, I know. Daniel won't forgive this. He's not done. The mansion's library smells of paper and polish, the faint musk of old leather bindings rising in the air like memory itself. Late light filters through the tall windows, striping the floor with angled shadows. I run my fingers along the oak shelves, steadying myself. It's too quiet. On the desk sits a stack of manila folders. I almost walk past them. assuming Franklin left more of Henry's estate files here. But something about the neatness of the pile draws me back. I pull one open. Loan packets. Thick. Officious. Pages stamped and notarized. The kind of contracts Henry never touched without days of deliberation. But the signature on the bottom stops my breath cold. Henry Monroe. Dated 6 months ago. My chest seizes. 6 months ago, Henry couldn't hold a pen steady, let alone sign a multi-million-dollar loan package. My stomach knots as I flip through the next folder, and the next. Different banks, different sums, everyone carrying the same neat, practiced script of Henry's name. It's not real. The hair rises on the back of my neck. I had to move fast. The voice freezes me. Daniel leans in the doorway, shadows cutting sharp across his face. He doesn't look drunk now. He looks cornered, brittle and fierce at once. I didn't have time to wait for Dad's theatrics. Deals were coming apart. I signed for him. My knees weaken. You forged him? My voice trembles, each syllable brittle. I did it for the company, Daniel snaps, stepping into the room. His shoes echo against the marble, too loud, too final. For us, for you, for the future I was supposed to have. Don't make it sound like some petty crime. Forgery is a crime, I whisper, clutching the folder like it might shield me. This isn't just reckless. This could bury you. He throws his hands up, pacing. I saved us. Those loans kept payroll alive, kept projects running, kept the whole damn foundation from looking weak after Dad's first collapse. I did what had to be done. Isn't that discipline under pressure? Isn't that exactly what he demanded? The words slice me open because somewhere in them lives the boy I raised, desperate to prove himself, blind to the ruin he's dragging behind him. My hands won't stop shaking. The pages rattle like brittle leaves. I picture the banks, the auditors, the regulators. Forgery doesn't vanish with charm or explanation, it stains. A second set of footsteps approaches, lighter, quicker. Marissa enters, holding her own folders tight against her chest. She doesn't look at Daniel first. She looks at me, then down at the papers in my grip. Recognition flashes in her eyes. I pulled duplicates from a contact at First Federal, she says, voice controlled but firm. They match these. Dad didn't sign them. Daniel scoffs. Of course you'd come sniffing, looking for dirt to justify your little throne. Marissa doesn't flinch. She steps closer, laying her folders beside mine. This isn't about thrones, Daniel. This is about survival. The banks will find out. If we don't disclose, they'll crush us. And everyone depending on us, when the truth surfaces. Her voice hardens, slicing through the air. We restructure. We take the hit clean, or the rot spreads. Daniel's face twists. Easy for you to say when you've got Franklin and the board eating out of your hand. But this was my play, my fight. And I'm not going down because you suddenly decided to play saint. His rage ricochets off the wood-paneled walls, hot and wild. I can barely breathe. The air is too heavy, thick with ink and bourbon and fear. My eyes drift from Marissa's steady grip on the files to Daniel's clenched fists, and I feel the ground tilt beneath me. Whichever path we take, someone breaks. My voice comes out cracked, barely more than air. He's my son. The words echo, fragile against the vaulted ceiling. Daniel hears them as absolution. His jaw loosens, hope flashing for a moment. Marissa hears them as surrender. Her mouth tightens, resolve hardening like stone. The room tilts between love and law. The clock on the mantel ticks once, twice. And then, from somewhere deep in the house, a door slams. We aren't alone. I insisted on the setting, not the courtroom, not the library where Henry's ghost lingered in the ledgers, the morning room. Pale walls, wide windows, sunlight filtering soft through gauzy curtains. A place that once carried laughter with coffee cups and newsprint. Maybe a gentler room could soften what had to be said. It didn't. Daniel sat rigid in the wingback chair, arms crossed, jaw grinding, the bruise of fury still fresh in his eyes. Across from him, Marissa leaned forward slightly, hands clasped on the table, her calm more unnerving than any outburst. Between them, Franklin presided like a firebreak, measured, immovable, his fountain pen resting in his palm like a gavel waiting to strike. I cleared my throat. This doesn't have to end in ruin. Daniel's eyes flicked to me, a flash of disbelief. Marissa didn't move. I pressed on. We can structure this. A monitored role. You. I nodded toward Daniel. Remain involved, but under oversight. Restitution required. Audits in place. Accountability. Daniel's scoff was sharp. You want to chain me to a desk and call it salvation? Marissa finally spoke, her voice low but precise. If you sign an admission, a written acknowledgement of what you did, and if you step back publicly, then, maybe, I'll consider it. Daniel shot to his feet, the chair skidding an inch across the polished floor. His voice cracked like a whip. You're both humiliating me to steal what's mine. The words rattled against the glass panes. Too loud, too raw. I stood too, my pulse pounding in my throat. Daniel, I said, sharper than I meant. The alternative isn't dignity, it's prison. The silence that followed was brutal. The house seemed to inhale and hold its breath. Even the clock on the mantel dared not tick. Daniel stared at me, stunned, as if I had pulled the floor from under him. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. Then, with a strangled sound, he shoved the chair aside and stormed for the door. The slam echoed like a verdict. I collapsed back into my seat, my hands trembling against the table's glossy surface. The sunlight suddenly felt cruel, illuminating every fracture we were trying to patch. Franklin adjusted his glasses, his voice calm but weighted. Once this reaches court, he said, leverage dies. Judges don't deal in bargains, they deal in records, and records already exist. Marissa straightened, her profile etched with resolve. Then we act before he does. Disclosure buys us credibility. Silence buries us. I looked between them, Franklin cold, Marissa steady, and felt the last gentle option slipping away like sand through my fingers. There was no longer a way to save my son without destroying the house Henry built. The curtains shifted with a faint breeze, sunlight flickering across the table like a warning flame. And for the first time, I wondered, when Daniel comes back through that door, will he still be my son, or only my enemy? The courthouse buzzes like a nest of hornets. Reporters choke the steps, microphones thrust forward, cameras firing in bursts that strobe the morning light. Placards wave with scrawled slogans, live streamers narrate into their phones, and the hum of gossip rises into a low roar. The Monroe estate isn't a hearing, it's theater. Daniel thrives in it. He climbs the stone stairs as though ascending a stage. His suit is knife-pressed, his smile clipped for the cameras, his hand cutting the air with every sentence. This is theft, he declares, voice crisp enough to pierce the chatter. My father intended me to lead. My sister is a usurper, and I will not rest until justice is served. The word usurper spreads like flame. Headlines bloom online within minutes. The disinherited prince strikes back. Daniel's swagger sharpens as if the crown has already been returned. I follow him inside, quieter, smaller. The cameras don't see my shaking hands. The courtroom is colder than the mob outside. Polished wood, brass fixtures, an air of sterility that strips performance from the air. Franklin sits at counsel's table with Marissa at his side. She is marble. Still, expression contained, lips pressed thin. She hasn't said a word yet. She doesn't need to. Franklin's voice carries her, smooth and deliberate, his cadence feeding the court Henry's own words: discipline, discretion, judgment under pressure. Daniel squirms in his chair, impatient, tapping his pen against the table. When the judge addresses him, his restraint fractures. "I was there," he shouts, leaning forward. "I kept the company afloat while Marissa lingered on the sidelines. My father told me—" "Mr. Monroe," the judge cuts in, tone flat as stone. "Answer to the record, not recollections." Daniel flushes. "The record's wrong. He said it to me. He promised—" The gallery murmurs. The judge's eyes harden. From my seat behind him, I can feel his heat, his fury, radiating backward. My palms dig into my skirt, praying he'll stop before the floor burns through beneath him. But Daniel has never known when to stop. Franklin raises objections with surgical timing, each one sustained. Marissa remains silent, gaze level, her hands folded neatly in her lap. Every inch of her says, "I do not need to fight this way." Daniel, though, can't help himself. His voice grows louder, his words faster, each syllable slipping further from strategy into desperation. The judge exhales, weary. "Mr. Monroe, if you continue to stray, I'll strike the testimony." But Daniel barrels on, louder, sweat beginning to gloss his temple. "This was supposed to be mine." Then the shift. A bank attorney, brought as witness, adjusts his tie and leans into the microphone. His voice is mild, his language clinical, until the words that stop the air cold. "There were irregular signatures," he says, eyes never lifting from his notes. "Documents purporting to bear Henry Monroe's signature, dated after his physicians declared him medically incapacitated." The room stills. My stomach caves. Marissa's posture doesn't change, but her knuckles blanch. Franklin stills mid-note, his pen frozen. Daniel's back stiffens as if struck. The judge leans forward. "Irregular signatures?" "Yes, Your Honor. Our review suggests a pattern. We've opened an inquiry. If substantiated, we are obliged to notify federal authorities." Federal. The word cracks like thunder. The gallery stirs, whispers ricocheting. Somewhere outside, cameras click faster though they can't see inside. The atmosphere thickens, hot with speculation. Daniel jerks in his seat, color flooding his face. His eyes flick, wild, searching for somewhere to land. Then they find me. He twists, turning halfway in his chair until his glare locks onto mine. It sears. Accusation floods his gaze, as if I had spoken those words, as if my silence had dragged the forgery into light. I want to lean forward, to whisper that it wasn't me, that Franklin, that Marissa, that anyone else could have set the match. But his eyes have already made the verdict. To Daniel, I betrayed him the moment I failed to shield him. The judge clears his throat. "Mr. Monroe, you'll have an opportunity to respond once counsel has completed. Until then—" But the rest blurs, because Daniel doesn't hear the gavel. He hears only the word that can end him: forgery. And the look he pins me with promises that when the cameras leave, he won't forget who he thinks lit the fuse. The house is too quiet. I sit at the kitchen table, the same table where Henry used to spread the Sunday paper, and Marissa would do her homework with a pencil clenched between her teeth. The hum of the refrigerator is the only sound, steady and relentless, like a clock I can't stop. In front of me, I rehearse. My lips move without sound. Yes, Henry promised Daniel the company. Yes, he said it countless times. Yes, he meant it. The lie Daniel wants, the lifeline he thinks will save him. Then the truth rises like bile. Henry promised the company to whoever proved themselves, to whoever showed judgment, discretion, discipline. And Daniel, you forged your father's name while he couldn't even hold a pen. The truth that will end him. My hands tremble against the wood. I shut my eyes. Both paths feel like cliffs. Outside, voices rise. I move to the window. Reporters swarm the gates, their cameras pointed at the mansion like weapons. Lips move, microphones waggle, but I mute them by pressing my palm against the glass. No sound reaches me. It feels like someone else's life. A movie on mute where I recognize the actors but not the story. My phone buzzes against the counter. A text. Marissa, are you safe? Eat something. The words are plain, but they land like a hand between my shoulder blades, grounding me, steadying me. I type and delete replies. Yes, I'm fine. Delete. I can't eat. Delete. Your brother is unraveling and I don't know how to stop him. Delete. Nothing I write fixes a sun on a cliff. Nothing bridges the chasm growing between us. The door slams open. Daniel storms in, eyes bloodshot, jaw tight, his suit wrinkled as if he never left it. The scent of alcohol hits first, then the heat of his fury. Tell them, he says, chest heaving. Tell the court Dad promised me the company. The demand isn't a question. It's a command, an ultimatum. I stay seated, my hands flat against the table. My voice is low but steady. He promised the company to whoever earned it. The words hit him like a blow. He stops mid-breath. His pupils flare, his lips part. Shock flickers, quickly swallowed by rage. No, he whispers, shaking his head. No, you don't get to twist it. You don't get to side with her. I'm not siding, I say, though even I don't believe it. I'm telling you the truth. He steps closer, looming, his fists clenched at his sides. The truth? His voice breaks into something raw. The truth is you're weak. You let him pit us against each other, and now you're feeding me to the wolves. Tears prick, but don't fall. Daniel, I'm trying to save you. He laughs then, a sound sharp and hollow. Save me? By calling me a forger? By handing her the keys? You don't want me saved. You want me erased. The words slice through me, each one a scar I know will never fade. We stare at each other, silence vibrating like a taut string ready to snap. His chest rises and falls too fast, his jaw locked so tight it looks painful. Then something shifts. His face changes, hardens. His eyes shudder like a door slamming closed, leaving only darkness behind the glass. I don't need you, he says quietly, almost to himself. He turns, moving toward the door. I want to call out, to stop him, to pull him back from whatever darker room he's just stepped into, but my throat locks, the words caught. The door shuts behind him, the sound final. And I know. The boy I raised is gone. What's left is something else entirely. The phone vibrates against the counter just after dawn, its hum slicing through the fragile quiet. Franklin's name glows on the screen. I answer with a breath half-held. His voice is low, tight, the words clipped. We've been hit. 3 contracts, long-standing ones. A rival underbid us by cents on the dollar, but with terms they couldn't possibly have known unless they had our confidential numbers. My stomach lurches. Leaked? Not leaked, Franklin says. Stolen. Our IT team traced the breach. Access was through internal credentials. Daniel's credentials, used at 2:13 this morning. The walls tilt. My pulse roars in my ears. I find him in the den, curtains drawn, the glow of a muted television painting his face in flickering light. He looks hollowed out, the sharpness of anger now dulled into something sicker. Daniel, I say, holding the phone like proof of sin. Tell me you didn't. He looks up, red-rimmed eyes narrowing. Didn't what? You gave away the bids, our contracts. It traced it. 2:13 a.m., under your name. For a heartbeat, he says nothing. Then he laughs, brittle, splintered. Of course they traced it to me. Who else would you believe? My hands shake. Answer me. His face twists, pride warring with panic. Finally, the words burst out. You forced me to fight dirty. What did you expect? You left me no choice. The room shudders with his voice. My knees weaken and I grip the edge of the table just to stay upright. Franklin calls again and I put him on speaker. His tone is grave, measured as always, but now edged with steel. The feds are circling. The forgery was one thing, but a breach tied to active federal contracts? If investigators prove this, Daniel isn't just reckless. He's criminally liable. Daniel whirls, pacing, hands tearing through his hair. This is exactly what she wants, he shouts, jerking a finger toward Marissa's empty chair. You all pushed me here, boxed me in, made me the villain. Don't act surprised I finally swung back. As if summoned, Marissa appears in the doorway. She doesn't stride in. She steps quietly, her presence pulling the air taut. Her voice is soft, but carries like a blade. If you shield him now, she says, eyes locked on me, the company goes with him. The words slice deeper than Daniel's rage. Daniel turns on her. Of course you'd say that. The sainted daughter with the halo of discipline. You've been waiting for me to trip, and now you get to shine. Marissa doesn't blink. This isn't about shine, it's about survival. His laugh is jagged. He spins back to me, his voice a raw scrape. And you? Don't stand there pretending you care. You always loved him more than me. For a second the words don't land. Then they do. He doesn't mean me. He means Henry. And still, it kills me. Because somewhere inside, maybe he's right. The silence thickens, unbearable. My chest tightens until I can hardly breathe. The weight of every choice I've made presses down, defending him when I shouldn't, excusing him when I couldn't, praying he'd grow into the man Henry imagined instead of the man he's become. I look at Franklin, at Marissa, at the walls that seem to hum with Henry's absence. Then I look at Daniel, my son, fists clenched, eyes wild, waiting for me to absolve him. The choice crystallizes, cold and merciless. If I save him, I lose the company, the crews, the families who depend on those paychecks. If I protect the company, I let the world strip my son to nothing. My voice breaks as I whisper it, almost to myself. I can't cover for you. Daniel stares at me, frozen. Then his expression fractures, rage and grief colliding in his eyes. Then you've chosen, he says, voice trembling. The air hangs heavy, electric. He turns, shoving past Marissa, his shoulder clipping hers hard enough to stagger her. The door slams so hard the frames rattle on the walls. The echo lingers, sharp as gunfire. I stand in the den, my heart a wreckage in my chest, knowing the line is drawn and that whatever comes next won't just be family fighting family. It will be blood against blood. The folder feels heavier than paper should. I keep my grip tight on its spine as I step through the courthouse security line, past the waiting eyes of guards who've seen too many families collapse in this building. Inside are the files, loan packets with Henry's forged signature, IT access logs stamped 2:13 a.m., time-stamped trails Daniel couldn't erase. When I hand them to the clerk, my fingers hesitate for half a breath too long. I let go anyway. The thud of the folder against the counter sounds like a verdict before the gavel. The machine moves quickly after that. Faster than I expected. By the time I return home, the cruisers are already idling in front of the mansion. Their engines purr low, blue and red lights washing the hedges in alternating waves. Neighbors stand at their gates pretending to trim hedges, pretending not to stare, pretending they don't see the Monroe family unravel in real time. Daniel bursts from the front door, 2 officers bracketing him, each hand gripping an elbow. His hair is disheveled, tie loose, eyes bloodshot. He thrashes against their grip, voice ripping through the quiet street. "Mom!" he screams, and it isn't the voice of a man facing charges. It's the voice of an 8-year-old who fell off his bike in the driveway, knees skinned, calling for me. The sound cleaves me in two. I want to run, to rip him free, to cradle him like I did then. But my legs won't move. "Mom!" he shouts again, the word breaking on a sob this time before it hardens back into rage. "How could you?" The officers shove him into the back seat. The door shuts. His face presses against the window, twisted, his eyes a storm I can't name, hate, grief, betrayal. All of it aimed at me. I can't breathe. My chest caves. Marissa is suddenly beside me, her hand slipping into the crook of my arm. Her grip is steady, grounding. She doesn't speak. Doesn't need to. She just holds me upright, her fingers firms until I feel the strength return to my legs. The cameras flash from the sidewalk, hungry and merciless. Neighbors whisper. Reporters scribble. The story is already writing itself without a narrator. The disinherited prince, cuffed and taken away. I turn back toward the house before my knees give out completely. Inside, the air is hushed, cool, the chaos left at the gates. My breathing is loud in the stillness, ragged and uneven. Tick. Henry's old clock on the mantel keeps time, each swing of its pendulum indifferent to the collapse around it. I sink into a chair. The cushion doesn't hold me so much as swallow me whole. I chose the truth. I saved the company. I preserved the jobs, the payroll, the foundation Henry built. I did the thing everyone said was right. And it still feels like failure, because I lost my son in the process. My eyes drift to the window. The cruisers are pulling away now, Daniel's silhouette a shadow behind glass. The lights vanish down the street, swallowed by distance. Silence returns, thicker than before. The only sound left is the clock, steady and merciless, counting down to whatever comes next. And I know, this isn't the end of him. It's only the beginning of what he'll become. Winter light spills through Dalton and Cocoa's glass lobby, pale and steady. Months have passed since the arrests, since the cameras. The company hums again, measured and unshaken. Crews get their paychecks on time. Hard hats bend over beams at construction sites without whispers of collapse. Contracts are signed clean, no shadows tucked in the margins. The storm is not gone, but it has been weathered. I fill my days differently now. Twice a week, I sit at a legal aid clinic downtown, helping women sift through the paperwork of divorce, eviction, custody battles. The fluorescent lights hum. The walls smell faintly of coffee and exhaustion, and still, I stay. I'm learning the slow language of repair, forms, signatures, hearings that don't end in cameras but in relief. It steadies me in a way nothing else has. But there are visits I dread. The correctional facility is stark, its walls too white, its windows narrow. Daniel sits across the table, his orange uniform crisp but weary, his hair shorn short. He doesn't rage anymore. He doesn't plead. He just stares past me, his jaw slack, his eyes ash where fire once burned. I speak anyway. "When you're ready," I say. "When you want to start at zero, I'll be here." He doesn't answer. The silence stretches until the guard signals the session is over. He stands without looking back. Each visit feels like pouring water onto stone, and still, I go. Back at the company, Marissa works like the building is an extension of her own body. She doesn't gloat. She doesn't bask. She brings me the quarterly reports in neat binders, the figures highlighted, every page accounted for. No flourish, only accountability. Today, she sets one on my desk. The pages smell of ink and restraint. She doesn't sit, just waits, arms folded, her face calm in a way that reminds me of Henry on his rare days of peace. I read every line. Revenues steady, safety records spotless, vendors loyal, payroll intact. Each number is proof that the foundation didn't just survive, it found a steadier spine. At the end, the last page waits for me. The letters are bold, unornamented. Director Emeritus. My title now. I pick up the pen. For months, my hands have trembled at every signature, every note. Now they are steady. I sign my name without hesitation. The ink flows smooth. Final. Marissa nods once. Not triumph, not victory. Just a simple recognition that what began with Henry's pen has come full circle in mine. She closes the binder, tucks it under her arm, and leaves without a word. I sit for a while longer, the office quiet, the hum of the building a muted backdrop. Henry's portrait still hangs above the credenza, his gaze stern and distant, as though he's still judging, but I feel no fear under it anymore. I stand, slipping my coat over my shoulders, and walk out for the last time as director. Outside, the winter air is sharp, alive, the sky washed clear. I step onto the sidewalk, the weight in my chest lighter than I thought possible. I think back to that day, the will reading, the mahogany walls, Franklin's steady voice. The silence when Daniel laughed. Loud, sharp. Convinced the game was already his. That laugh was the moment everything cracked open. The moment masks began to slip. The beginning of our honesty. It cost me more than I imagined. It saved more than I thought possible. The clock ticks on. The company stands. My daughter leads. My son sits in silence. And I, for the first time, walk forward with nothing left to carry but the truth.